Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Dr. Mel here. Depending on when you are listening to this or watching this, whether you're live or listening later on our video cast, our podcast, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for tuning in. I know right now, more than ever, if you're listening to this podcast when it comes out, it's the summer of 2022 and there is a lot going on, and it can be very easy to get caught up in what I am calling and learning the trauma vortex. And we'll get into that in this episode of what the trauma vortex actually is. And just to connect with yourself in this episode, in this, now I'm calling it a Mindfulness Tuesday since our hours have shifted. Just check in with yourself for a moment and sense where your body is in space, sense where your breath is in your body, and just allow yourself to really sink in to this moment, this present moment. Taking a breath in your heart and maybe sigh. Just let that energy go. I know right now there's so much happening. And the question that I come at you with today is, are you addicted to the trauma vortex? Or are you addicted to the red pill? Now, I'm not going to go all matrix on you. The matrix that I'm going to be talking about is trauma and healing trauma. And this is something I think is still very powerful to speak to. For those of us who have grown up in a chaotic environment, for those of us who have experienced a lot of intensity in our life, maybe your home life growing up wasn't exactly structured, there was a lot of emotion, maybe there was a lot of yelling, maybe there was a lot of bullying. That's what we could call intensity. And if you grew up in that environment, and you notice in your own nervous system, it's challenging to connect with pleasure and it's challenging to connect with comfort and ease, it could mean that part of your system has some level of addiction and familiarity with intensity and sometimes re-traumatization because it's what you grew up with. And our nervous system is the most malleable and the most sponge-like and open and influential to change and imprinting when we're younger, especially when we're babies, all the way up until about adolescence, until we hit puberty. We are very more easily influenced from outside sources, from our external environment. And we know that our external environment influences our internal environment. So I bring this question to the forefront of our conversation today because I have been studying a lot and learning from one of my greatest mentors. Her name is Kimberly Ann Johnson. If you have not tapped into her work, I highly recommend reading her book called The Wild. She has some amazing courses out there, and she's been a huge mentor of mine in learning what it's like to actually heal from trauma and not just get addicted to the biohacking. And that's a really big trend right now is, heal trauma through breath work and heal trauma through doing saunas and ice baths and cold baths and, sensory deprivation type stuff or psychedelics. And while all of that is powerful and very cathartic and can shift your neurology very quickly like that, it's also important to recognize that some of that fiery energy can be coming from a place of what we could call addiction to intensity, where, as Kimberly Ann Johnson calls it, the red zone or the trauma zone. In the somatic world, when we talk about healing somatic experiences and healing trauma, they refer to these different vortices. The blue vortice or the blue vortex is all about resourcing and ease and comfort and the ability to feel pleasure and safety in your central nervous system. And then on the other side, there's the red vortex or the red paradigm, which is the trauma, the discomfort, and the pain and the challenge. And in moments of trauma, we experience way more red than way more blue. We don't perceive that we're resourceful, and it's much harder for us to orient to pleasure. And when you're living in a culture where the media and a lot of the conversation is oriented to red, it can be very easy to stay in that zone, especially if you've grown up in much more of a red vortex. So much so that it can become addictive. Why? Because when we're in trauma, we have adrenaline coursing through our veins, we have cortisol, and we get all these endorphins, or not necessarily endorphins, rather, but different neurochemicals that get our body into that fight or flight state. And something that I teach my clients and my practice members is just because something is familiar doesn't mean that it's actually efficient and functional. So, starting to shift your paradigm, what is familiar to you and what is actually functional? And my invitation to you all, especially with everything going on in the culture, Roe versus Wade, and, people talking about recession and the economy, and it can just get so red vortex, right? It can get so in this red zone where we're re traumatizing ourselves every time we open our phone, every time we scroll online, or every time we turn on a news channel. And while I believe it is important to know what's going on in our world, we also have to remember that our nervous systems were not designed to be processing energy and information on a little tablet or a screen that's happening 1,000 to 2,000 miles away. Our nervous system has not evolved to the capacity of our technology. So that's something to remember is while I think it's important, again, to know what's happening so that we can impact our community, it's also important to tend to your own needs so that way you can show up more present and more embodied with the people actually around you in your immediate environment, your friends, your family, your kiddos, your clients. So, when we talk about healing trauma and asking ourselves, are we addicted to intensity? And I will be the first to say in this journey, my nervous system is very oriented towards intensity. My nervous system is very oriented towards adrenaline. And while it's familiar, that does not mean it's sustainable for my health and well-being. And that does not mean it's sustainable for my nervous system's ability to experience healing and to experience pleasure. So there is a very strong necessity in orienting ourselves to the blue side when it comes to healing trauma. In the somatic experiencing world and in the central nervous system research, we're finding that pleasure and experiencing safety is extremely important in healing trauma. And when we're constantly re-traumatizing ourselves through maybe biohacking, doing the shadow work, people talk about doing shadow work or going into the darkness or going into the intensity. While that can be, again, cathartic, we have to ask ourselves, are you able to resource your nervous system to a place of pleasure, to a place of safety, to a space of actually experiencing ease and balance? And this is why I love Network Spinal, the work I do in the office so much, is because we help the central nervous system through our gentle contacts along the spinal cord. We help the brain attune to areas of peace and ease and safety, even in the midst of chaos. And the more that you can orient yourself towards pleasure and safety and ease in chaos, you can take this metaphor and apply it to really any area of your life. You start to heal from trauma much more organically and much more efficiently. So while I am, looking at cathartic experiences of going into the darkness and going into the intensity, and sure, you get a release and you get like an experience, you have to ask yourself after that cathartic experience of like biohacking, are you actually different? Is your nervous system more oriented towards balance and ease? Or do you get this like big grandiose experience in your nervous system, and then is there an integration time? Is there resourcing? Is there safety? Are you teaching your nervous system to find areas of pleasure? Because yes, experiencing pleasure and fun and play, which is part of our parasympathetic side of our nervous system, is very important to having a balanced, coherent body mind. So I bring this up because I think there's a trend right now of the biohacking, the intensity, re-traumatization, shadow work, going into the darkness, right? All of that is very trending right now. And again, I'm not against that, but for someone who doesn't have any orientation towards safety and stability and pleasure, it's very common and most likely that you will go into a re-traumatization experience and you'll have this experience, but your nervous system will not be fundamentally different and have the capacity to orient yourself in pleasure and to pleasure and the blue side, even in the midst of cultural chaos. So I think that's just something important to speak to because I look at everything in the culture from the lens of the central nervous system. Like, what is this person's nervous system doing? What is the collective nervous system doing? And are we teaching ourselves to orient towards blue and orient towards pleasure? Because when we're able to resource, and resourcing comes from connecting with your body, sensing your body, breathing into your body. You know, breath and oxygen are some of our most important resources in order to stay alive. When we're able to do that and challenges arise, our nervous system has learned, oh, I'm resourced and I can handle this and I'm resilient. And then once you've been able to resource into a space of safety and stability, then I think it can be very powerful to experience these cathartic things that I'm speaking to. Again, you're probably hearing it in the healing culture, like shadow work, going into the darkness, psychedelic experiences, just intensity, right? And again, I'm someone where I do sauna cold baths on a weekly basis, but I know how to orient myself and I make sure I check in with myself and ask, am I doing this to escape? Or am I doing this because I feel safe and I feel I can orient towards pleasure and I'm doing it simply because I know the benefits for my health? And I think a lot of people and a lot of healers, I'm putting that in quotes, a lot of coaches will create these retreats or create these experiences that say heal your trauma when they don't actually understand foundations and how the central nervous system needs pleasure and play and safety and stability to heal. And it's simply just a re-traumatization experience. You get the adrenaline rush, you get this cathartic, like, wow experience, and then you go back into your daily life and everything is the same. So that's why, to wrap up this video cast and podcast, I think it's really important to attune to your own sense of safety in your body first before you start to look at doing like the deeper shadow work, right? We all need foundations in breath work. We all need foundations in central nervous system care. And you can do that in your own body mind. Like, you don't need to travel all the way across the globe to do these experiences. You can cultivate it here and now through a lot of the work that we teach at Inspire Co. That's why I do breathwork classes every single month. That's why I come in here and teach you how to connect with your body mind, doing sessions with people, and even at our immersion. You know, we're not doing anything crazy. We're just teaching you how to orient to yourself and heal from trauma in a much more sustainable way. And then you can go do all that great stuff, right? So I digress. Let us learn how to reorient to pleasure. Let us learn how to break the addiction to intensity. Intensity is not bad, by the way. When I say addiction to intensity, intensity is not bad, but with intensity, we also need integration. And with challenge, we also need support. And with like trauma and that type of experience, we also need the healing vortex equally. So reorient your state. Ask yourself, am I doing this thing because I'm addicted to the intensity? And for today, asking, how can you orient your nervous system towards a little bit of pleasure? And pleasure can mean simply, for example, me right now, I'm sitting at my house. I'm about to go into coaching calls here very soon. But reorient your environment that allows you to have little moments of pleasure. Like, what is your nervous system drawn to? I have this salt lamp to my left, and that's just really like pleasureful to have. Is it lighting a candle? Is it having plants around you? Is it having, you know, I have a glass of water, mineral water with me. Is it having like a little, you know, thing of coffee? Is it having essential oils, right? How can you orient yourself to little moments of pleasure as you do your trauma healing? So I hope this video serves today. I hope this video cast and podcast serves wherever you're at. And listen, if you have people in your life that are experiencing chaos right now or experiencing maybe a re-traumatization and don't know where to go, share this with them. Share this podcast, share this video cast, invite them to this community if you're tuning in live in the Inspired Living community, which if you haven't already, we have an online Facebook group. We are slowly going to be transitioning to a monthly call. So stay tuned for that, because I don't know where Metaland and Facebook world is going to be in the next couple months. So we're slowly transitioning into more of a monthly call where we can really get connected from a more like a place of community and a place of actually seeing each other's faces, and not just me jumping on here not able to see your faces, because that's another thing with healing trauma, is you don't have to do it alone, and having a support group and just a community can be really, really powerful to support you in those healing experiences, just to share what's coming up for you and be seen and be heard and be witnessed. So wishing you all a great week, and thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, make sure you connect with us. You can email us or hop on over to our website to see our future events, our future immersions, and make sure you stay in touch with us when it comes to our community support and connection call that we'll be rolling out here in the next couple months. So this is Dr. Mel wishing you a great day, and peace, love, and keep inspiring.